He was shivering so hard that I could hear the sound of his teeth from the porch. My son, my little boy, stood outside in the freezing cold while my parents and my sister's kids sat inside, laughing, eating, and pretending like nothing was wrong. It was Thanksgiving, the one day I thought families were supposed to come together, but that night I realized how wrong I was. I kept staring through the window, my heart breaking with every second that passed. The warm light from the dining room spilled out through the glass, and I could see my mom passing the turkey platter, my dad pouring himself another drink, and my sister's kids giggling like the world was perfect. But outside, my boy's lips were turning purple, his eyes full of confusion. He didn't understand why his grandparents had shut the door on him, and honestly, neither did I. It had started just an hour earlier. We had driven 2 hours through snow and wind just to make it to my parents' house. I told my son, "They'll be so happy to see you." I wish I hadn't said that. The moment we pulled into the driveway, I felt something heavy in my chest, that silence, that kind of silence where love used to live. My mom opened the door, looked at me, then looked past me. She didn't even smile. "Hi, Mom," I said softly, brushing snow off my coat. She nodded, her voice flat. "You're late." I tried to laugh it off. Traffic was bad, but we made it. At least we're all together now, right? She didn't answer. My dad came in from the kitchen, holding a glass of whiskey, his face tight with that familiar disapproval. I knew that look. The look that said, "You're still the disappointment." My son ran toward him with excitement, holding the little Thanksgiving card he'd made at school. It had a picture of a turkey drawn with his handprint. "Grandpa, look. I made this for you." My dad didn't even bend down. He just muttered, put it on the table, and walked away. I saw my son's smile fade, just like that. I wanted to scream, to ask them why they always made love feel like a test, but instead, I just took off my boots and told him, "It's okay, buddy. Let's just go inside." But it wasn't okay. My sister arrived 15 minutes later, carrying store-bought pies like she'd just saved the day. My parents lit up the second she walked in, hugging her, laughing, making space for her kids on the couch. I stood there with my son, still holding our coats, waiting for someone to notice us. They didn't. We sat down at the table eventually, but the air was so thick with tension I could barely breathe. My dad made jokes about how some people can't handle responsibility. My sister laughed. My mom smiled at her. Nobody looked at me. My son tried to pass the mashed potatoes and dropped the spoon by mistake. The sound of it hitting the floor felt louder than thunder. My mom sighed loudly, muttering, "You should teach him some manners." I wanted to leave right then. But my son whispered, "Mom, please, can we stay? I want to eat with them." That's when I swallowed my pride, again. For him. After dinner started, my sister's kids began teasing him, saying things like, "Why don't you have a dad around, and bet you can't even cut your turkey right." My mom didn't stop them. My dad smirked. My son looked down at his plate, silent. He didn't cry, not then. But I saw his small hands shaking. I stood up and said, "Enough. This is supposed to be Thanksgiving, not a firing squad." My dad glared at me and said, "You're ruining dinner." Just like always. I grabbed my son's hand. "Come on, we're leaving." That's when my mom's voice cut through the room. "If you walk out that door again, don't bother coming back." My son froze, looking between us. "Grandma, why are you mad?" he asked softly. She didn't answer. My heart broke in that moment, not for me, but for him. He still believed that love could fix everything. We reached the door, and just as I was about to open it, my sister said, "Maybe if you learned how to be grateful, Mom and Dad wouldn't treat you this way." I looked back, shaking. Grateful? For what? For being ignored in my own parents' house? I stepped outside. The cold hit me instantly, like needles on my skin. My son followed, clutching his little jacket. But when I turned around, the door slammed shut. They locked it. Just like that. No call, no apology, no chance. The laughter continued inside as if nothing happened. He stood there, his small body trembling, his breath fogging in the air. "Mom," he said quietly, "did we do something bad?" My throat closed up. "No, baby," I whispered, kneeling down to hold him close. "We didn't do anything wrong." Sometimes people forget what family means. Snow began to fall again, soft but relentless. The sound of clinking silverware came from behind the glass. I could see them, my family, passing plates, smiling, pretending to be good people. Inside was warmth, food, comfort. Outside was me and my boy, learning the hardest truth of all, that sometimes, the people who should protect you are the ones who hurt you most. I pulled him closer, my tears mixing with the snowflakes on his cheeks. He whispered, "Can we go home now?" And for the first time that night, I smiled, a broken, tired smile, and said, "Yeah, let's go home, sweetheart. Somewhere people actually love us." We walked back to the car, our footprints the only thing left in the white snow. I looked at that house one last time. And even though the lights were bright, all I saw was darkness. The drive back home was silent. The kind of silence that isn't just quiet, it's heavy, almost alive. The snow kept falling, the headlights cutting through the darkness like two tired eyes trying to stay open. My son sat in the back seat, hugging his little backpack. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just stared out the window, watching the snowflakes melt against the glass. And in that moment, I realized he wasn't confused anymore. He was hurt. Deeply. Every parent dreams of protecting their child from pain, but what do you do when the pain comes from the people who were supposed to love you first? I tried to keep my hand steady on the wheel, but my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it echo. Every mile we drove, I thought of every Thanksgiving before this one, the laughter, the smell of my mom's cooking, my dad carving the turkey, me and my sister arguing over who got the last slice of pie. And then I thought about tonight, the same people, the same house, but everything different. "Mom," my son finally said in a tiny voice. "Do you think they'll ever like me?" Those words felt like a knife twisting inside me. I glanced at him in the rearview mirror, his eyes red from holding back tears. I swallowed hard and said, "Baby, they don't even like themselves. That's why they can't love anyone else." He nodded slowly, trying to understand something even adults struggle with. We got home close to midnight. The house was cold, not from the temperature, but from the emptiness. I hung our coats by the door, and for a second, I almost expected my mom to call, to say sorry, to ask if we were safe. But the phone never rang. My son went to his room and sat on his bed, still in his jacket. I followed him, sat beside him, and he leaned against me quietly. "Mom," he whispered, "can we make our own Thanksgiving?" I smiled softly. "We already are," I said. Because Thanksgiving isn't about who's around the table. It's about who's in your heart. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of something burning. I ran to the kitchen, and there he was, standing on a stool, trying to toast bread. He looked up and grinned, "I made us breakfast." I laughed through the tears. "It's a little smoky, but it's perfect." We sat at the table eating burnt toast and cold butter, but somehow, it felt warmer than any holiday I'd ever had. That's when my phone buzzed. My sister's name flashed on the screen. My heart tightened. I didn't want to answer, but something inside me said I should. I picked it up slowly. Her voice was low. "Hey." I didn't reply. "Listen," she said, "I didn't know they'd lock you out." I swear, I didn't. My chest ached. "You didn't stop them either," I said quietly. There was silence. Then she said something I didn't expect, "You were right about them. Mom and Dad, they've always made us compete for their love." I just never saw it until last night. I didn't know what to say. For years, I had been the problem child, the one who left, the one who didn't follow their rules. But hearing her voice tremble like that, I realized something: pain doesn't always look the same on everyone. Some people hide it behind perfect smiles. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have stood up for you." For him. My throat tightened. "It's too late for sorry," I said, though part of me didn't believe it. She sighed. "Maybe not. They're still pretending nothing happened. But I told them I'm not coming over anymore. Not if they can't treat you like family." That silence between us wasn't angry anymore, it was heavy, but honest. After the call, I sat there for a long time, just thinking. My son came in holding his toy truck, his face brighter than yesterday. "Mom, can we decorate for Christmas early?" he asked, smiling. I laughed softly. "You really think it's time?" "Yeah," he said. "Let's make it happy here." And for the first time, I didn't feel like we were missing out on something. I felt like we were finally building something of our own. That night, I tucked him into bed, kissed his forehead, and turned off the light. As I sat alone in the living room, I looked around at our little house, the flickering candle, the blanket on the couch, the half-burnt toast still sitting on the counter. It wasn't much, but it was ours. And somehow, that made it enough. Then, around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mom. My heart started racing. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. A minute later, another text came through. "We shouldn't have done that. Please come for dessert tomorrow. Bring the boy." I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete the message, erase it, pretend it never came. But another part, the part that still remembered what it felt like to be their child, wanted to believe maybe they meant it. I put the phone down and walked to my son's room. He was sleeping peacefully, his small hand resting on his chest. I whispered, "You deserve better than apologies that come too late." The next day, I didn't reply to my mom's text. Instead, I took my son to the park. The sun was shining, the snow glistening like diamonds on the ground. We built a small snowman, and he laughed, really laughed, for the first time since that night. It was pure, innocent, free. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Sometimes, walking away isn't about weakness. It's about finally choosing peace over pain. As we drove back home, my phone buzzed again, a photo from my sister. It was a picture of her kids holding up my son's drawing. The turkey handprint card. Under it, she'd written, "They kept it." My eyes filled with tears. Maybe people don't change overnight. Maybe they never do. But sometimes, small cracks appear in the walls we build around love. And that's how the light gets in. That night, as I tucked my son in, he looked at me and said, "Mom, are we gonna see Grandma again?" I paused. "Maybe one day," I said softly. "But only if they learn how to keep the door open." He smiled sleepily and whispered, "I hope they do." Weeks passed after that Thanksgiving night, and something inside me began to change. The hurt was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I started realizing that sometimes, the family you're born into isn't the family that gives you peace. It's the one you build, with kindness, with understanding, and with love that doesn't demand perfection in return. My son was healing too. He laughed more, slept better, and stopped asking when we'd visit my parents again. He just moved on, in the quiet, simple way kids do. One evening, I was cleaning up after dinner when my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message, it was a call. My dad's name flashed on the screen. I froze. My heart wanted to ignore it, but my fingers, they answered before I could think. "Hello?" I said, my voice low. There was a pause, then a sigh. "It's me," he said. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could hear his breath, shaky, unsure. We shouldn't have done what we did. It wasn't right. I didn't say a word. Part of me wanted to hang up. But then, I thought of my son, the way he still hoped, even after being locked out in the cold. "Dad," I said quietly, "do you even know what that night did to him?" His voice cracked a little. "I know. Your mother, she cried all night after you left." My chest tightened. "Then why didn't she open the door?" I asked. There was silence. Long, heavy silence. Then he whispered, "Because we didn't know how to admit we were wrong." I closed my eyes. That was the first time in my entire life I'd ever heard him say something that sounded like regret. He asked if we could come for dinner, not Thanksgiving, not Christmas, just dinner. "It doesn't have to be a holiday," he said softly. "Just family." I told him I'd think about it. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall, feeling the weight of all the years that had built up between us. Then my son came running into the room with his toy truck, his face glowing with excitement. "Mom, guess what? My teacher said my Thanksgiving story was her favorite." I smiled. "Oh yeah? What did you write?" He grinned proudly. "I said I learned that home isn't where people say they love you. It's where they show it." That hit me like lightning. He had turned that painful night into wisdom. He didn't carry bitterness, he carried understanding. And that's when I realized, maybe healing doesn't start when they say sorry. Maybe it starts when you stop needing them to. A few days later, I finally replied to my dad's message. Just one line, "We can come over next Sunday. But things have to be different." He replied almost instantly, "They will be." That Sunday, we drove back to the same house, the same road covered in snow. But something felt different. I wasn't scared anymore. My son hummed quietly in the back seat, clutching a small plant he'd grown for his grandma. "Maybe this time," he said, "we can make them smile." I squeezed his hand. "Maybe we can." When we arrived, my mom opened the door before I could even knock. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling. "I didn't know how to say it," she said immediately, her voice breaking, "but I'm sorry. For everything." I didn't rush to hug her. I just looked at her, really looked, the woman who raised me, who hurt me, but also the woman who now stood in front of me trying to make it right. "Mom," I said quietly, "sorry doesn't erase the past. But it's a start." She nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. My dad came to the door too. He didn't speak, but he placed his hand gently on my son's shoulder and said, "Hey, buddy. You cold?" My son smiled shyly. "Not this time," he said. We went inside. The house smelled like turkey again, but this time there was no pretending, no tension, just a fragile piece trying to rebuild itself. My sister was there too. She came over and hugged me tightly. "I told them everything," she whispered. I told them they almost lost us for good. I held her back, both of us shaking a little. "Maybe losing us for a while was what they needed," I said softly. Dinner was quiet, awkward at first. But then, my son told a silly joke about a snowman eating too much pumpkin pie, and for the first time in years, everyone laughed, a real laugh, the kind that fills a room and doesn't feel forced. My mom reached over and held my hand across the table. "Thank you for coming back," she said. I nodded. "Thank you for opening the door this time." After dinner, we sat by the fire. My dad handed my son a small wooden box. Inside was an old photo, me, as a little girl, sitting on my dad's shoulders at a Thanksgiving parade. "I kept this," he said quietly. "I just forgot how to be that dad." I looked at the photo for a long moment, my throat tight. "Then start being him again," I said. "You still have time." When it was time to leave, my mom hugged my son and said, "You made this place feel warm again." He giggled. "That's because I brought the sunshine." We all laughed, but I think deep down, everyone knew he was right. Sometimes children carry the light adults forget how to keep. As we drove home that night, the snow started again, but it didn't feel cold anymore. My son fell asleep in the back seat, smiling, and I whispered to myself, we did it. Not because everything was perfect now, it wasn't. But because we'd chosen to face the pain instead of running from it. And that's what Thanksgiving should really be about, not turkey, not traditions, not fake smiles over full plates. It's about forgiveness. It's about realizing that sometimes, the door that was once closed can open again, not because they changed completely, but because you did. When we got home, I tucked my son into bed and whispered, I'm proud of you. He stirred a little and murmured, half asleep, I'm proud of you too, Mom. That single sentence broke me in the best way. Later that night, I looked out the window, at the snow, the same way I had weeks ago. Only this time, I didn't see pain, I saw peace. Because even though that Thanksgiving began with a door closing, it ended with hearts finally opening.